meeting of the NACP Law Enforcement meeting in Kankakee County to order. It's 12:05, and I'd like to ascertain all those individuals, members who are present, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Redeemer. I'm sorry, Reggie, we can start with you. Just the mic. Go ahead, Lori.
With the NAACP.
Good afternoon. I'm Reggie Bell with Garden Prairie Youth Center.
Commander with Kankakee Police Department.
Aaron Riley, Kankakee County Jail Ministry.
Chief.
Andy Baston, Lieutenant, Kankakee County Sheriff's Office.
Jim Phelps, Chief, Bourbon APD. Don Barber, Chief, Raleigh PD.
Doug Redenius, Bailiff, Kankakee Courthouse.
Verline Jordan, Intake Specialist, Kankakee County Community Services.
Hunter, Hispanic Partnership, NAACP, County Board.
Paulette Crank, Secretary, Kankakee County NAACP.
Bob Mason, Lieutenant, Bradley PD.
Theodis Pace, President of Kankakee County Branch NACP.
Mike Downey, Kankakee County Sheriff.
And the respective communities that we serve. So with that, Lieutenant Mason, you have the minutes.
Okay. Minutes from last time we met was March 10th, 2021. No public comment at that time. NAACP and local law enforcement meet regularly to help bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community through discussions and build a relationship needed to be effective. I did a presentation from the survey results of the recent NAACP crisis team training that was at KCC in November. Very positive results from attendees overall. Theodis Pace added an email was sent to all law enforcement members asking about initiatives to take similar trainings to local high schools. Professor Bridget Bertrand from KCC spoke about offering that training at KCC as a local in-service for credit hours, social work, increase community professional knowledge. Most of the municipalities have signed off the 10 shared principles, as we know. We did lose sound for about 15 minutes on there. I just noted that. Chief Swinford handed out the NAACP Crisis Response Team attendee certificates. Anyone that was not present, they were delivered to them or given to them in some means. Theodis Pace thanked everybody involved with the training committee and other law enforcement community members for putting the training together and advised it is now on the community to take this training and move forward with it. We had updates from State's Attorney Jim Rowe on the recent passing of Illinois House Bill 3653, the reform bill, and how we move forward with it. And basically I put some quotes in there, what he said about some of the changes making it more difficult to do our jobs now. There's some trailer bills out there. There's a new bail reform that elements that basically you can't hold. The example he gave was hold someone accountable on a drive-by until they do it a second time type. And then we also talked about contacting local state representatives, state senators to make amendments to this omnibus bill. Steve Hunter mentioned that Chief Swinford and Sheriff Downey were reaching out through their respective organizations, which is obviously Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and Illinois Association of Sheriffs. And then we touched on and closed up with the body-worn cameras. Gessner from the Sheriff's Office was working on finding a vendor. us at Bradley PD. We purchased them, and we were waiting for them to come in. Chief Cosman from Kankakee City PD was working on looking at different vendors. Chief Swinford reiterated that they've been using them for over a year. I know Bourbonnais, I didn't mention it in here, but Bourbonnais PD has had them for a while. And then Captain Harsey from ISP said with such a large agency, they're still trying to figure out all the logistics to it.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Can we get a second to approve the reading of minutes of March 10th? Lori, second. Are there any questions, addition, deletion of those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carried. The next item is, we actually talked about it, but Kalon Jordan, can you come up? He wasn't at our last meeting, and I know you and another person called me. Yeah. Oh, wow. Right. Really. It was asked early before the start of the meeting, so this would be to Lieutenant Mason, Chief Swinford, and you, Mr. Hunter, regarding future training and addition to the response team. I don't know, we had a meeting since then. Chief, what would be our thoughts on that future training and individuals to the team? Yes.
Is the easy part. It's coordinating the individuals to attend. I mean, we had pretty good list on the last one, and we got, a third of them. So we got quite a few people that could attend. I don't know what the next step going forward is, if we want to send out an email to prospective people and see when their availability would be. And then we can coordinate it on our side with, the trainers. But it's more getting the people to attend, I think, is the bigger issue.
So we also know that, I know Lieutenant Mason and Commander Alston have been doing some training at the college now. I think Professor Bertrand has since resigned or retired,
Correct. I think we could do the training here now. I think we've got it down, and
Think so?
the crowd would be manageable, yeah.
Okay.
Assuming that's okay with the sheriff. I don't want to volunteer his room, but
Yeah, we volunteered.
yeah.
It would be hard for him to say no, so. And then the other piece was that out of that, Professor Bertrand had been contacted by other individuals on how we can get various credits from community leaders, which Lieutenant Mason echoed in the minutes. So that's another piece that we could probably look at.
The continuing education credits?
Right.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. We can find out.
Personnel that we mentioned, I don't think it's a deficit, but I think it would be an addition that we incorporate students into the individuals who need the training, because those are the guys that interface on social media more than we do. But I think we'll have to make a determination as to how those individuals will be selected. Should it be student council personnel or officers or what? But that's something we probably need to discuss and find out in terms of students who we'd like to invite.
So I think, Al, you the chairman, so I guess we probably need to schedule a meeting between now and whenever our next meeting would be. This is May, June, July meeting. We can talk about it, and that would be a piece that would have to almost go into next school year with the summer being over. It'd be hard to try to contact, students, government, and that with the respective schools, because again, you would want those students from across reflection of throughout the county. So, right, be something that we need to, right. So we can do that. Yeah, I think that's some, so,
Teen court or something they're gonna be starting in Kankakee, and that might be a good component to latch off of, you know, as far as
Right.
training on how to interact with police and you stop, because those kids are getting in trouble and they gonna have this court versus going through the court system or something.
yeah. Yeah, so that, okay, so that'd be something that, we could talk about. And so it'd be the future training and then the addition of adding, some, more of a youth component, to the response team. Any updates, anybody, any other comments regarding, House Bill 3653? Anything of that nature?
Was they had presented some alternative language to the legislature, and we're waiting to hear back. That was probably within the last week. I don't think there's been any progress since then that I've heard.
Okay.
I don't know what the timetable for that is either.
We have the mayor of Kankakee, along with the chief of police. You guys want to make sure, you introduce yourself?
So I'm Robin Passwood, I'm Chief of Police.
Chris Curtis, City of Kankakee Mayor.
All right, chief, you might want to grab the agenda there. Get one to sign in on the way at the end of the meeting, but it's two agendas there. And yeah, you can. It's two pieces of the. It's the second page to the. Yeah, to the beige. Yeah, yeah, it's 2 pages. So, again, Lieutenant, Chief Swinford, Chief Barbara Phelps, anything, we thought State's Attorney Rowe would be here. So any updates, any more thoughts regarding 3653 on how we view things? None? Okay. Updates.
Not quite sure how to take that, Mr. Hunter. So yeah, as Chief Swinford said, the Illinois Chiefs and the Illinois Sheriff's Association, along with the FOP, are working as a group so that we're not getting the chief saying one thing, the sheriff saying another, and the FOP saying another. So we are working with each organization to present some things as everybody from the governor on down has referred to, those unintended consequences that we've talked about, the unintended consequences of House Bill 3653. So the language that they're giving back to try to get passed as a trailer bill is trying to address those issues of those unintended consequences that they're already aware of. So I'm sure, again, police reform is an ongoing function. I mean, whether they pass legislation or not, every chief in here, including myself, is always looking at how we can reform ourselves. So with it being ongoing, I don't see really that 3653, while passed, I believe that people will still continue to make changes to not just the bill, but to law enforcement in general. So.
With respect to Tri-Rivers and your rank and file deputies as well as cops in general, I mean, what kind of, and maybe we could hear from respective police officers, police chiefs, as to what they're going to be doing regarding training, because that liability stuff is paramount.
Part of the trailer bill, I think, is basically asking, because a lot of this stuff goes into effect on July 1st, and part of the trailer bill says you can't train however many police officers we have in the state of Illinois from now until July 1st. I mean, you're going to have to give some time to get that training done. So I know that's one of the requests that the law enforcement is making is to give us more time to continue that training, because you just can't get it done that fast to be done on July 1st.
You know, from the NACP perspective, we've been on several state calls, statewide, with all of the 42 branches across the state, and Senator Sims has been on some of those calls, and we have echoed, you know, our sentiments from a perspective from Kankakee County, and you know, some of the other members here, branches from across the state, have attended this meeting to try to duplicate what we're doing here, and to continue to build that relationship between black and brown and respective communities across this county, and they're trying to do some things throughout the state. Now, Chief Passwater and the mayor, we met Monday, and the chief brought something out that was pertinent that we have mentioned in here, and with the, you know, the little cards that we gave to the patrolmen. So the chief thought is, again, as I glean this room, almost everybody here except the response team members are from an administrative standpoint. We got the lieutenant, we got all the chiefs. But his thought was, and again, as I maintain, that patrolman is the face of your respective department. And so we need to figure out to ensure that what we, the policies, and the implementation of what we do here, you know, I know outside your office, it's out, you guys' office there in Bradley. I've been with Chief Phelps, Chief Barber, and in Kankakee. But do that patrolman really understand and those 10 shared principles from 1 to 10, and how it reflects his and her duties across the board as they patrol our respective community. So we need to figure out how we gonna take that approach from Chief Passwater and pass that down to those patrolmen, because again, we can effect policy here, and how administration is going to disseminate that down to the foot soldier, the guy that is going to have those relationships with our citizens.
So we, as you said, we have one upstairs in administration. We have one right out here on our wall here, and we also have one in our squad room where our officers meet before every shift. We also, during staff meetings, have reviewed those shared principles with them as well, which I'm sure other departments have done as well. So it is getting passed down to the patrolman on the street.
Right. So some reinforcing that we need to do that. So,
yes.
So I just want to make sure I echo that. Anything else, Chief, you want to add to that?
So we talked about meeting with our union, you guys
Right.
coming in and talking to them. But I think it'd also be a good idea to have just a group of those people come in and talk about the 10 sheriff principles with just a group of officers in general. I mean, even if it was at a shift change, or set it up to where we can get just officers from every shift in, and maybe talk about it just for an hour and kind of go through it. Because, I mean, we do talk about it, but it's nice to hear it come from you guys and your perspective of it. Just
Milan, anything?
They're actually working on that second. I'll go back to the House Bill,
Okay.
3653.
Can we go back to what Pasquale was saying? I think that makes sense. And I think we need to do that, seeing the face of NAACP, and interfacing with Norman and whomever in terms of those shared principles, and seeing us physically there conveying what this stuff is all about. That makes sense.
yeah, we can bring in, we can just do a meeting with a group of the senior officers who are, the patrolmen, or whoever we want to do it. It would be tough to get everybody in there, but at least get enough guys in there that they can pass it on and just discuss it with them what each principle
good.
is. So
I like the idea with the shift change, because you got those people
Right.
there together.
I mean, that's 30 minutes, but definitely can go through it. And we do a lot of training like that in 30 minutes. We'll bring in Arbor House, we'll bring in domestic violence place or whatever else in 30 minutes. But I think that's not a bad time to do it. Just maybe do it 4 or 5 times.
You know what's really interesting, like this morning, you know, one of the favorite committees I serve on is criminal justice. And the data that is provided at that particular meeting, be it state's attorney, the sheriff's department, coroner, and those folks, it may be a good idea to provide some of that data as well too, because it's amazing when you hear the data regarding domestic violence and the correlation with COVID and stuff. Those numbers have gone up. But it's a teaching committee in terms of the data that's provided at that committee, you know, to the county board people. And it'd be nice if some of that information is shared with patrol as well too, because it's significant.
Okay. Ms. Ringo, can you just introduce yourself? Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Ringo from Riverside.
Thank you. Okay, Valon, back to
Okay, back to the House Bill 36. I think, how if I hear it in the meeting minutes where you want to call your representatives and all that. I'm a private citizen, so the language in the bill, there's specific language I know that we're wanting to clean up or make it not, I think sometimes you may have a card that you give people and it has just what you want, the major changes you'd like to have in the bill, and give them to people to call their representatives so we're all saying the same thing.
That's a good idea.
You know, I mean, because I would like to do that, but I'd like to know what points that we want to make them clear up. And I think that would be very beneficial, because the training is nice, but you're training on stuff that needs to be revised. It's going to be trained even more because that bill as it stands is too vague. It needs to be more, some language needs to be cleaned up in it.
What may be done even better than that is that we keep tossing around Senator Sims. Yeah, and I know that you and Senator Joyce have met with him.
Mm-hmm.
But Mr. Chairman, it may not be a bad idea if we have him here and seeing the face of Kankakee County and all of us saying the same thing. It
like
should
that.
have an impact.
I like that idea.
Really. And I know we can talk to the senator, and I'm sure that Representative Jackie House would she's been open and amenable to a lot of different stuff that we've been talking about. And that those guys, Senator Joyce and Jackie, are in lockstep on a lot of different stuff. It's amazing how they're working together, but I think we need to pursue that.
Who's that?
That's under Sims.
Yeah, that's right. He's part of the
Yeah,
representing
so
the
he
county.
represents part of us.
Okay.
So
Make it duly noted
who's
that
gonna
we could
take
deal with that.
leadership in that?
We could pass that on to our political action committee and address that situation on it. We're going to start with Chief Barber, then Chief Phelps. Just an update on body cams, and then we're going to move to the next item. Chief.
Yeah, so we have received the body cam. We are waiting for the install into the cars and to migrate the system into our servers. So we're hoping to be on board by mid-June, probably at the latest, but right now we're just waiting to get that stuff done with the programming.
Okay. Chief Phelps, you're ahead of the game, but
Yeah, this is part of the memory game here that I'm going to fail. We started the pilot program, I believe, late 2014 into 15. We started out with the V-View cameras. We since have transitioned over to G-Tech. Got a lot of helpful advice from Chief Swinford when we were looking at different models. We're trying to get away from multiple vendors, and we've accomplished that. So we now have one company for everything, and the beauty of that is everything is synced together. So now you hit the lights, not only does your car camera come on, but your body camera comes on as well, so there's not that extra step in the officer having to manually start the camera when he gets out. But that's only when, say, it's a hot call where you have the lights on. But I think that's a very good step in moving us forward to get away from some of those situations where a camera might accidentally not be activated. So we're liking the results so far. You know, storage obviously is an issue. We are using the cloud, but as everyone in this room agrees, it's quite costly, and one of the things that's prevented a lot of the local agencies from getting on sooner than they have.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's that G-Tech system. So we just talked about it yesterday with the tech services, and we just thought that's probably the best way to go, because if something's gonna, if we need help or assistance or technical assistance, they can also help us too. And we're, everybody's together on everything anyway, all the other systems. So
You guys not going in to buy them all together or anything, right? Get a cheaper price or anything?
Well, actually, that was actually brought up for some of our smaller departments, that based on what we got pricing on what we needed that the board just approved yesterday. But I mean, that might not be a bad option to. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You so Chief, you're not on. You haven't doing the package deal, or you guys in Montana? Yeah.
Same vendor, but
Yeah, we're so G-Tech, Bourbonese on G-Tech, Swinford, Chief Swinford's on G-Tech. You guys Panasonic, right? Yeah, right. Yeah.
So again, this body, you know, we come up with policies and initiative, how our officers will represent us and to serve and to build that trust in our community. My question would be to we've dealt with Bourbonnais a number of times, but Chief Swinford, Barber, Passwater, what would happen, and we see this all the time across America, where a officer with the body cam, something happened and the body cam is not on, and if they turned it off, what consequences or discipline we gonna put in place is something that discussion that we might need if that happens.
And most of the department policies are coming up, but that's one of the laws that
Yeah.
they're talking about in the reform bill. That's one of the laws we have issue with, is making it a felony to not turn your camera on.
Right.
And, you know, we absolutely support body cameras and having video, but you got to understand, in a stressful situation, you're bailing out of your squad car for something, turning on that body cam is not your top priority. Not getting shot is your top priority. So to make that a felony, to forget to do that is a problem. So the key is in the language there, how that's worded. If it's, you know, if it's intentional, you're hiding something, that's one thing, but just criminalizing a mistake is a problem. So that is one of the issues we're talking about in the trailer bill.
You know, and
Having
for
a chance to view
those individuals who
what
might be the
happened
first
on
time
that
here,
night.
we've been dealing with this since Ferguson, but the question is,
Lourdes, good afternoon. You'll remember,
you know, some of the things that might not happen here in Kankakee County, but people who I represent or advocate on behalf, they see it nationally where that officer maybe purposely didn't have it. I'm just saying, you know, we need to make sure something is placed regarding discipline that would happen with that particular officer, because the sheriff and I talk all the time. We can try to move 4 steps here in Kankakee County, and the citizens that we represent see something nationally which push us back 3 steps. So I'm just saying we should always be in that progressive mode of thinking to ensure that things don't happen here. And as Hunter mentioned in a meeting last week at where one of our team members, response team member, Sheriff, stated that even though we're prepared, it's that, how did she word it, Stevie? When it happened. So it's when it's happened. So
It's not a question of if.
so the next item on the The next item on the agenda is for all our sheriff, our lieutenants, but foremost, Valon Jordan, Miss Ringo, correct? Mr. Reggie Bell, Myron, all right? It's for you on these screens. I was talking with Swinford and the sheriff last Wednesday. The incident that happened in Columbus, Ohio, the first thing I said was, Lieutenant, why didn't he use his taser? Why didn't he use his taser? So Chief Swinford is going to educate us a little more on the things that officers are addressing every day, getting in and out of their squads, and how they interact with the citizens that we serve and represent.
If I could just for a second go back to body cameras, one thing I think we need to do is, and body cameras are great, they're offering great evidence and great for accountability, but there needs to be some real education on that they're not perfect. They're mechanical, technical pieces of equipment that fail. And that's going to happen on occasion. It's going to happen at the worst possible time. The trigger doesn't work, they don't turn on, they don't capture what you want, the audio doesn't work. And we just need to realize they're not going to be the perfect thing to uncover every piece of evidence.
Okay.
Before you start out, Mr. Ringo, there is some food in the back room if you'd like. Just want to make sure you know.
So do we need to dim the lights, Chief? Or?
Yeah, like I said, we met last week. We were talking about just some local things that were going on here locally. And during that conversation, we talked about some of the more critical incidents of police use of force that have occurred over the last year. And I think the conversation, what I took out of that conversation is the challenge that's facing our task force.
Right.
All police use of force are not the same. You know, we deal with people, and that means every single contact is different. And I think if you watch the media today, it kind of lumps all police use of force into this negative light. Keep in mind, police use of force, we talk about this all the time, it's ugly. Anytime you use force, it does not look good. But it doesn't mean it's not justified. So the challenge, I think, for our task force is going to be analyzing these events and determining, that your whole purpose is to determine what happened and make sure that it's being investigated properly, fairly, openly. But the variations in them, I think we are seeing, it's really interesting, but it's difficult. So we pulled up some videos, we watched the videos of this meeting, and we kind of walked through them. I brought them with me so we can kind of talk through them here. And we'll go from one extreme to the next.
Tonight, police body cam video is helping to fill in some of the details of what happened the night George Floyd died in police custody in Minneapolis. One officer is charged with murder, 3 others with aiding and abetting him. Here's CBS's Jeff Pegues.
This cell phone video isn't the only video showing the moments leading up to George Floyd's death. This morning, by appointment only.
So this is an easy one, right? I mean, there's nobody in the country that has defended this. This is a blatantly obvious, not easy to look at, but it's easy to evaluate. There's no question this is what's that? Yeah, maybe. Even the most extreme people, I've never heard anybody in the country defend this. So like I said, this is an easy one, but they're not all like this.
Lourdes, good afternoon.
This is the 13-year-old that was shot by a Chicago police officer in the alley.
Which is the agency that investigates Chicago police shootings. Initially withheld this video from public view, but after the Toledo family has had a chance to see it, now all of Chicago is having a chance to view what happened on that night. And early on in the morning of March 29th, 13-year-old Adam Toledo and 21-year-old Ruben Ramon were walking on South Sawyer Avenue in Little Village. At 2:34 in the morning, they walked past the front door of Amor de Dios United Methodist Church, located at 2356 South Sawyer Avenue. Toledo is wearing a white hat in the video. He and Ramon walk out of view of the camera. The next time the two were seen is moments later from the vantage point of a school surveillance camera about a block away, looking east across a parking lot from Farragut Career Academy High School. They were near the corner of 24th Street and South Sawyer Avenue, and on the video, at least 8 gunshots can be heard, and police say they were recorded by ShotSpotter, which is that high-tech system of sensitive microphones that pick up the sounds of gunfire and then help police locate the spot of the shots. So those sensors indicated the shots had come from that corner where Toledo and Ramon were standing.
So this is a tough one. There is no question he has shot an unarmed child, correct? I mean, it's clear. The body camera shows it, and that's why we have body camera. This officer shoots an unarmed child. But here's my question to you, and this is the stuff the task force is going to wrestle with. What is within the realm of human ability here? So this officer receives a call of a shots fired, confirmed shots fired from ShotSpotter. Suspect running down an alley at 2 in the morning, armed, by all accounts armed. The suspect, obviously we know now, using several videos, drops that gun, turns around. That officer obviously feels his life's being threatened and fires a shot within a fraction of a second when he had that gun. He does not have the gun here. So Andy, you can jump in here, but there's an entire organization called Force Science that studies this. You feel threatened. Your brain tells your hand, you're about to be shot, get your gun out and shoot this, end this threat. It takes time for that to process. In the meantime, that circumstance has changed. That gun has been dropped, although the time he would have had to perceive that and change his thought process is a fraction of a second. And your mind just doesn't have the ability to change that. We talk about this in our training all the time. You know, when you're focusing on your front sight, something could change out in front of you. I don't have an answer to this, but I'm afraid, and I'm really interested to see where this goes. I hope they get experts to analyze this video and determine what could be done better. Because I think we're going to, and this is a thing where the public really needs to be engaged. What are we expecting out of a human being police officer to do in a circumstance like this? You know, I use the example at our meeting. You know, let's say, Robin, you're a new recruit. And I say, come in here, I got a scenario for you. I'm going to give my 10-year-old a gun, and you're going to get called to a suspect with a gun. As soon as you get here, he's going to run down this dark alley at 2 in the morning. You got to chase him. He's either A, going to shoot you, or B, he's going to drop his gun. Handle it perfect, or you're going to prison. Go. And that's exactly the scenario this officer was in. Now we're talking about other options, possibly like ending foot pursuits. Is that a good option? I don't know, honestly. And we have pulled back our foot pursuits. Our policy changes. The sheriff talked about. You know, we're in a constant reform mode. We have been my entire career. You know, we don't chase a fraction of the people in cars we used to because people were getting killed, innocent people. We have reformed that. We may do the same thing in foot chases, but I mean, here's a case where you're chasing an armed suspect. We didn't know at the time he was a juvenile. Whether that would have made any difference, I don't know. Who was shooting a gun, likely. What are we expecting of our officers? I don't know what will be the outcome of this, but it's a very interesting case. And again, as our task force presented with this scenario, it's going to be some tough discussions.
Alan, that Kenosha DA saying that he took a lot of time coming to a decision about whether to charge the police officers involved in this. And he said what he was able to come up with is a process that was very thorough and a decision that was very narrow.
I announce today before you that no Kenosha law enforcement officer in this case will be charged with any criminal offense.
Michael Gravely and his team took nearly 2 hours to contextualize what he called a domestic incident last August. Gravely described how the mother of Blake's children, Lakeisha Booker, had called 911 to report Blake had taken the keys to her rental car and was planning to leave in it with their kids. Police arrived knowing there was a felony arrest warrant for Blake, and today the DA confirmed Blake had a knife on him, something they say Blake himself admitted to state investigators.
We say with confidence, based on Blake's admission, based on all the officers saying it, and this video evidence, he clearly is armed with a knife as he walks around and approaches the driver's door.
Gravely maintained he would not be able to convince a jury that Officer Reston Shesky, who wrestled with Blake and eventually shot...
You're probably pretty familiar with this. There was widespread community protest, damage from this. After months of investigating and digging into it, they basically found these officers didn't do anything wrong. You know, it doesn't mean the ending's not tragic, but they did as well as they could do. People don't have all this information within hours of a shooting. It takes days, weeks, months for these things to do it. And the position we're putting you in is possibly digging into a case like this and hopefully getting some of this information up front. I don't know, you know, we'll have to, it's going to be case dependent, but it's going to be tough. There's going to be community outrage because it looks bad initially, and it may end up being bad. But in this case, it didn't, but a lot of damage is done in the meantime. They're tough cases, all based on individual facts of that case.
Protests in Columbus, Ohio, the scene of another deadly police shooting. This happened minutes before the verdict was handed down in the Derek Chauvin trial, and the victim here is a 16-year-old girl. According to police, the officer fired after the teen tried to cut 2 other girls with a knife. But in the graphic body camera video of the incident, it shows a very chaotic scene. It is incredibly difficult to discern exactly what is happening here, and there are still so many questions that need to be answered. CNN's Ryan Young is live for us in Columbus with the latest. Ryan, what are you learning about this? It is very difficult to understand what's happening in this video.
Yeah, absolutely. And then look, protesters even took to the street last night to say they were very upset about this. The fact that they released this video so quickly, you can understand what the city was trying to do in terms of letting people know what position their officer was in. From what we know right now, there was some sort of disturbance call. There was obviously a fight going on. When the officer arrives, he made a split-second decision. Of course, some people in the community don't think that's the right one. We're going to warn you, though, the video is difficult to watch. It's disturbing. We're going to show it to you in real time the first time through. Take a watch.
Hey. What's going on? What's going on? Hey, get down, get down, get down, get down.
So Makaya Bryant is the young lady who was in it. She was 16 years old. The officer arrived and said he saw a knife and then opened fire, unfortunately shooting that young lady 4 times. She did die. We've also have the video slowed down. Now, this police department actually slowed this video down as they released this video. Take a watch of this version of it as police show what their officer was dealing with. So I'm not sure you still see this video, but right now the officer approaches. There is a knife. There's some movement there, and then he opens fire. Now, of course, there's a lot of people who are upset with this decision. So a lot of questions will be going on. The officer has been put on paid administrative leave. It normally happens after a shooting like this. On top of that, of course, there's calls in the community for more of an investigation. But listen to what the mayor had to say during this difficult situation.
Not just the mayor, the father. The city of Columbus lost a 15-year-old girl today. We know, based on this footage, the officer took action to protect
another young girl in our community. But a family is grieving tonight. And this young 15-year-old girl will never be coming home. Yeah, you can understand all the emotions that are involved in this. Brianna, look, there are so many questions that are still attached to this. Another police-involved shooting. Of course, someone could say that the officer felt he was protecting the other two young ladies. It was reported at one point that Naacp might have actually called police herself for help. So many questions in this, with emotions running so high across this country, especially when it comes to police-involved shootings with black youth at this point. It is just very difficult day ahead for Columbus, and we'll see what happens as it plays out. Brianna? They released this video. Take a watch of this version of it as police show what their officer was dealing with. So I'm not sure you still see this video, but right now the officer approaches. There is a knife. There's some movement there, and
So this is probably going to sound a little cold, and feel free to disagree with me if you do. This is a frustrating point for law enforcement right now, and you know we bring this on ourselves. I'm as critical on law enforcement as anybody out there, but there was protesting after this stabbing, after the shooting, and it is tragic that this young girl died. However, and the point I made in our meeting is, this officer's career may be ruined, and in fact, he's probably a hero. Not for shooting that girl, but for saving the girl that was about to get stabbed. I don't think there's any question by looking at this video, in my opinion, that that girl in red is about to die. This officer gets out of his car in an unbelievably chaotic situation where you see the one girl falling down and some idiot's starting to kick her. I don't know what that was about. And then this other girl starts attacking this girl in the red with a knife. He makes a split-second decision to analyze this situation correctly, and then makes an incredible shot on the girl in black without hitting the girl in red. He is a hero, in my opinion, and they're protesting, and his career will probably be over. It'll never be the same. And I'm not making a point that he's a hero for shooting, you know, a young girl. I guarantee he did not get out of bed this morning thinking, I want to go shoot a 13-year-old girl today. And the media there called her a victim. Well, who's she a victim of? The police is what they're saying. Basically, she's a victim of the police. And that's just a common terminology you hear. But, and if she's a victim of anybody, she's a victim of our mental health system, probably. But what do you do with this situation? What is our task force doing with this situation when it comes up? They're going to be hard questions. I wish I had easy answers for you, because, but we have to look at these things. Every single one of them are different, and they have to be analyzed in the facts, and they have to be analyzed with patience and professionalism. And unfortunately, we live in a society where you want these snap judgments. A cop killed a young person, and it must be bad. There's plenty of those out there. We could go on and on playing videos of bad police shootings. Don't get me wrong. I know they're out there. And those officers get what they deserve. But the vast majority of them are not that, but they're getting kind of lumped into that. So that's the topic of our conversation. Open for discussion. If, like I say, I got a thick skin if you want to change my mind on things.
Taser could have been used in that situation?
That's a great question, and Theodis brought that up as well. Andy, jump in there as a use of force expert, but keep in mind a taser typically is not an emergency weapon because it fails at times. And if it fails in that circumstance, what happens? There's no time to recover. There's no time to then engage in lethal force. What would happen is we would use the taser, if in fact it even worked, which it might or might not, that girl's going to get stabbed. It's just there's no time to recover if it does not work. So we're putting that woman's life in hopes that the taser is going to work. And that's, if I'm that girl in red or pink, what do you want? What do you want the officer to do? If you're that girl in pink, what do you want the officer to do? Try a taser or end it for sure? And keep in mind, we came about our training, we don't shoot to kill. We're just shooting to end her threatening action. And there's no time for anything else. A nightstick might have worked. Wrestling her might have worked. There's no time to do it. she's going to stab that girl before we can do anything else. I think that's our only option. That is a great question and one the community is going to ask. And the taser is a great weapon. I'm a big supporter of the taser, but it has its place in time, and a millisecond response time is not it. Andy, you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I don't know how many were at the training we put on at KCC. During that training, I showed multiple videos of taser use. Some worked, some did not. Chief Swinford spoke very well on that of the taser is not an emergency use, less lethal device. Whenever we are in front of a lethal situation, we have the possibility of the use of the taser, but we also have to have lethal capabilities with it. We have seen in other videos here recently on how if one officer misused a taser or a firearm thinking it was a taser. So we do not do any type of, I have a less lethal in one hand and a lethal in the other. Under a stress situation, what one hand does, the other hand does. So I cannot go to, well, I'm going to use less lethal here and use lethal here if that works. The time that it takes to make those decisions, this instance here, from a long-time firearms instructor, that is an unbelievable shot that guy took. To be able to hit the suspect that is going to cause lethal damage to the female in pink and not have a pass-through shot to be able to save the person that he's trying to save. I can't tell you the split-second timing that took and the accuracy that took, the training that took.
Most officers, I would say, probably might not take that shot for that exact concern.
Yeah, you know,
and would be justified not.
Just me looking at it right here, I have to take one or two side steps to the right to clear my background. I'm responsible for my background and foreground. That is extremely tight. That is extremely tight for a very good shooter. On a range with no time, no chaos, on a cardboard target, that's a difficult shot right there, let alone him pulling up in 11 seconds, having to make a decision at a chaotic scene. We work off of something called an OODA loop, Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. That's what it takes for everybody to see something that's going on, orient ourselves to what's going on, decide what we need to do, and then actually do it. So OODA loop, Lieutenant Colonel Boyd is where this came from World War II. Look it up, there's a ton of literature on it. Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. It takes a long time for us to get through that whole action, and then every time something changes, if the female with the black shirt on takes a side step to the right in this video, I have to do my whole OODA loop over again. So that OODA loop is constantly changing. And for this officer to be able to make that decision and then physically make the shot that he did, it's absolutely amazing that he was able to pull that off. So, yes. Absolutely. So, Yep, absolutely. So, okay. So, how many people were at the training that I put on at KCC? Okay. So, if you remember, there were a handful of videos. One was a subject that they backed out of a long driveway and ended up out in the street. He had a knife in his hand. He charged at the officer. They shot the suspect multiple times. It knocked the suspect down, knocked the knife out of his hand. Everybody remembers what I'm talking about? And so then it was no longer a lethal situation. It went from a lethal situation. They shot him. Again, why do we shoot? We shoot to stop life-threatening behavior. We don't shoot to kill. He stopped the life-threatening behavior. He then went to deploy the taser. As soon as the suspect realized he was about ready to get tased, he stood back up. This is after being shot multiple times in the torso, went at the other officer, put him in a headlock, started to grab his gun, and that officer then had to use lethal force again. So that's all that Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. He went from lethal force to less lethal force to lethal force again. Firearms, if you remember, I talked about specifically pistols. They are horrible human stoppers. They do not stop humans. It is not like the movies. The movies have taught all of us to think, I shoot you once and you fall over and die. It does not work like that. I shoot you once and you stop doing what you're doing. It does not work like that. So why do I shoot someone multiple times? Because they have not stopped that life-threatening behavior yet. As soon as they stop that life-threatening behavior, then I stop shooting. Why don't we shoot in the legs or the hands or the arms? If everybody remembers, I get to you here just a second. Yep, I see you. As everybody remembers, I put a video up of myself trying to shoot a water bottle out of a target's hand. I'm on a flat range with no time, no stress, except the video being recorded of me. And I try to shoot fast and I miss a water bottle. So now if I try to shoot in a leg and I miss, now I'm sending a lethal projectile out into what we call the economy, out into the civilian world. So does it go down the street? Does it skip off of this car? Does it hit the person that we see on the left-hand corner of the screen there behind that car? So I have to know what my target is. I have to know what its foreground and background is. Shooting something this small in a split-second decision that is moving with a handgun is extremely, extremely difficult. Yes.
With this whole incident that happened, I watched this video many a times because I knew Facebook was coming. And I realized, you know, I didn't want to just, because I always, what's the terminology? I go against the wave sometimes on a lot of things, especially with my community, because I feel like my community does think quickly and jumps on things, you know, without getting all the information. But with this incident, Facebook started going, of course, the uproars and everything, and I was one of the first ones that said, looks justifiable. Only thing about it is, I hate that we're losing another young person. But it was justifiable. Well, why they didn't do this? Because they're not trained to do that. Why they didn't do it this way? Why they didn't shoot a hand or a foot? What if they missed? What if they would shot the other person because they tried to? What if the bullet would have ricocheted? What if, or anything trying to shoot things like that? And of course, my community at times don't want to hear that because they realize, justifiable or not, they lost another black person. And that's why I guess they're tired of the fact of, yeah, it's justifiable, but we still lost another one. You know, with this shooting and everything like that, everything you said, the taser, I said that, nah, that taser wouldn't have stopped her. After seeing the video you showed us, I put that, I said that on Facebook. Like, I seen a video of somebody got shot almost like 14 times, and they still got to the officer. Bit the officer face off. That stays with me. I ain't gonna lie. and things like that, and it's like, the time heals, you know, then they forget about it. But I realize at the point that your officers are put in a situation where this happened, he saved that woman's life, that young man's life. But like you said, his jeopardy, I mean, not jeopardy, but his job might be jeopardized, or he might not, you know, be trusted in the community because of things like that. But he actually is a hero. But we don't look at it that way because of other bad incidents that have happened.
Yeah, they get lumped together, and that's a reasonable conversation.
Right, and people, and I said that on Facebook. I said we got to stop saying what happened in Ferguson and what happened in Minnesota to another case. They're different. You got to treat them all individually.
And as tragic it is that the young lady's lost, it forgets the lady in pink,
exactly,
who was almost lost as well. And going back to your question, shooting multiple times, that's all. Everything Andy's talking about is assuming that we're hitting her. You don't know instantly whether you even hit her. So if he shoots one round and misses, that other lady's cut. There's just, I mean, you can just look at the position of that. She's a millisecond from being cut. So if he shoots one round to see if it worked, no, it's too late. The damage is done already.
Real quick on that, they said that on Facebook so much. Why 4 times? That's excessive. That's over. I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know if he had a revolver, but he didn't empty the clip. It's only 4 shots. I realize that. I don't think that's excessive at all. 4 shots to make sure that the threat is ended. Because it's not the movie.
Yeah, so 4 shots. So a fast shooter in law enforcement, your split times, which is from shot to shot, is not the first shot, but from the first shot to the second shot to the third shot, approximately a quarter of a second. A very good fast shooter in law enforcement is maybe 0.2 of a second. Probably your average law enforcement officer, you're probably at 3 to 4 tenths, 3,500 tenths, somewhere around in that range of split time in between shots. So just take this as a little bit of above average shooter. Because of the shot that he made, I'm going to put him above average at 1/4 of a second in between shots. So 4 shots, that's 1 second is what that took. You start getting into force science, as Chief Swinford said, and into the OODA loop. It takes you 3/4 of a second just for the human body to be able to observe what we're going to do and decide what we're going to do. That's not even sending the signal from my brain after I decided, hey, I need to do this, out to here to say either start doing this or stop doing this. So it takes even longer for us, once we make the decision, to start or stop what we are going to do or what we are currently doing. So for 4 shots in maybe, a second and a quarter, however long it took, that's exactly what the human body, and not just through training, that's what everybody's human body, that's how our body works. That's what ends up happening in these situations.
Can I say one quick thing? One message that we might be able to get behind here for our citizens in the county
is stop, comply, and stay alive. All the people that we watch every night on TV would still be alive if they just stopped and didn't resist. A big percentage of those individuals would still be breathing and still be alive. If we could get people to just comply, that's it. Just stop.
Members of the media be part of this as how they can share it more well-rounded, because I'm wondering if the family members of the woman in pink reached out to the media to express their gratitude that their daughter is alive. And the media had that opportunity to share that on the other side of it as well. So I'm wondering at a local level if we can invite, people to be part of that.
I was just telling the sheriff, in the email that went out regarding this particular meeting, I forgot to invite Chris Breach, who normally attend this meeting, and it would be great. Today is Wednesday, and this session would have been in Saturday's paper to summarize what we just did here today. But that's why it's so important that the members of the response team, that you guys had the opportunity to see that, but to go a step further, Valon, Paulette, Myron, is that we're going to have to pick a spokesperson for that response team. So now we talked about it. So you guys are going to have a meeting probably between now and I think it's July. Check our next July 12th. Maybe our next meeting where we can all come together, and that spokesperson is representing that response team. That's why it is so important that at least here in Kankakee County, the city of Kankakee, the village of Bradley, the village of Bourbonnais, Mantino, St. Anne, Moments, that we do have that relationship to deal with trust, account. What's that? Oh, well, I thought I did say Kankakee County, but that we have, again, is the NAACP, the village of Bradley, the city of Kankakee, are we going to always agree? No. Are it going to tarnish relationships? Retaliation is going to muddy alliances? I say no, because we should be able to disagree. We have to move on and with the group that members of that response team that's here, now it should really value you of the training that you completed and how important of a citizen that you are to your community.
have continued training. You know, I think it was good for us to get that long amount of training, which is a lot in one day. But I think it's a continuation of training because as situations occur and happen, you're learning more about what the police job is. And with us going into a simulated circumstance, we got shot 12 times, didn't hit but once. You know, but those are things that we as a team, as a committee, have to continually be trained on to get the knowledge and understanding when these situations come up, that we begin to have a little background about it too.
These are really complex issues. I mean, we've been going to training for 30 years on it, and we're still learning stuff. So in 4 hours you got the other day, you're not going to understand it fully. So you're
Correct.
right. We need to keep going.
And so, you know, we're 10 minutes over our normal time. Rhonda, anything else?
I just think it would be good if the team could meet on a regular basis to have discussions into national events that are on the media and sort of practice what, yeah, how would we respond if this were Kankakee County?
With us responding to these events, I'm just saying this is the first time that I've seen the actual video. I heard about it, and when I heard about it, I wasn't a professional. I was just a mom at home, and my husband had told me about it, and he said that the young lady who got shot, she was being jumped beforehand. So I just instantly thought of my, 13-year-old daughter. How would I feel if she died knowing that she was beat up by multiple girls, and then the police came, who I have trust with, that, it's supposed to be able to protect her lives. They were the ones actually that ended her lives. But you're not looking at all of the other situations like this. And speaking as a mother, I can't speak for that mom, but me, I wouldn't care to even hear about how close in range, what type of shot, none of that stuff matters. So when we do speak to the community, we have to be really careful, how we communicate with them. And we have to communicate with them in a way that they can understand. First and foremost, we have to work on building their trust. Because I can say for the most part, with everything that's happening on in the nation, the trust is not there. They're not going to hear about anything. They don't care about our training. They don't care about anything, nothing that. They want to know that we care first. When they understand that we care, then they're going to be able to reciprocate all of the other stuff that we put in all of this work here. So I'm just saying, just moving forward, it's a real touchy situation. It's hard to look at. But I do understand. I understand now, as a mother before, I didn't even see the video, and I understand now, even after the training that I did have. But for the community, it's going to be hard for them to understand what's going to come out of our mouth, even as us as citizens outside of law enforcement.
So that's why we're doing something that's unique. Mm-hmm. It's quite refreshing. We got our response team. So with that thought, can we meet? Our next meeting is Wednesday, July 14th, and in that meeting at noon, Myron and
You said July 12th. It's the 14th.
14th. So what we can do is a corresponding Wednesday. So it's the 14th. So what we can do, we're going to invite all of the response team, same day of our meeting, that you can go into the room next door, and then you can have your meeting. Then also, it's important that you guys pick your spokesperson. So Wednesday, July 14th, will be the meeting of the response team.
Just make it a mandatory meeting. I mean, you get more inclined for people to show up versus if you can, if not, we understand.
We're bringing lunch.
Yeah. So, yeah.
For police, that is mandatory.
Yeah, so it is, right. But Chief Swinford will be sending those emails out to all of the team members.
A couple things. Who are we going to replace? What's her name from the professor from Case? Bridget.
We got they hired someone already.
I haven't met them.
Yeah.
Swinford, Mason, and myself. We need I don't want to sound like a sexist, but we need a woman, to counterbalance, what we're doing. Also, coupled with the training for the response team, every municipality needs to have a citizens police academy as well too. That will help in terms of orienting community leaders as well about different stuff. Now, I don't know if it was Mayor Curtis or somebody that mentioned there's going to be a joint initiative to buy a simulator or something and take that around the community.
There's been discussion of that through the Chiefs Association.
Yeah, so I talk with you about that or somebody.
So,
somebody.
all right, all right. So again, our next meeting is Wednesday, July 14th, 12 noon. response team will meet in our room, the room next door, and then we can move on, and then the training committee can meet, figuring out how we're going to add additional training and those other individuals that missed the 2 days training, and how we can bring them on board and then expand between now and next school year to try to bring some of our youth on board. We talked about a 4 day.
Really was a full day training.
You know, so that's it. So again, it's the things that we're doing here in a preventive way, and to educate our citizens, because again, my meeting with the mayor and Chief Passwater the other day, and sometime with Phelps and everyone, other municipalities. It's about retention, it's about diversity, it's about equity, it's about inclusion, along not only everybody's talking about maybe funding, but also dealing with our respective departments. And I know in the Kankakee, we're losing minorities officers, but yet Kankakee is the pocket where the most of your brown and black citizens live. So those are issues that we're going to also have to be able to address in the future. So, again, it's what we're doing to try to improve the quality of life of our respective communities, continue to build the relationships with law enforcement in our community. So with that, can we get a motion to get? Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Lieutenant Mason, second by Hunter. See y'all on Wednesday, July 14th.